Hi, I'm Sheyla Gonzalez, and I will be presenting Norman Rockwell. Norman Rockwell was born on February 3rd, 1894, in New York City. He died November 8th, 1978, in Massachusetts. His art style was realism, and he was married to three different women throughout his lifetime. His first wife being Irene O'Connor. He was married to her from 1916 to 1930. She divorced him because she claimed he was too absorbed in his work and neglected her. Um, his second wife, Mary Barstow, he was married to her from 1930 to 1959, and in 1959 she died of a heart attack after struggling for years with depression and alcoholism. Then his third wife, Molly Punderson, he was married to her from 1961 all the way to his final years, which is 1978. Norman Rockwell was an American illustrator and painter whose this painting right here is his first painting with the Saturday Evening Post. It's called Boy with Baby Carriage, and he got paid $75 for it, and it was published on May 20th, 1916. And in this painting, he addresses like toxic masculinity because during the time, the women's movement was going on. There was like there was an economic and cultural and social like shifts that were challenging the traditional masculine authority that people had, well, the men had, and and it was he was just addressing it. As you can clearly see, it's a little he would use children to in a lot of his paintings, and you see there's a little boy carrying, I mean, pushing around a carriage, um, a baby carriage, and then there's two other boys mocking him, and because they're even now like it's like men boys they they don't take care of the kids, they work, they get their hands dirty, they're not because he's wearing gloves. I think that's what it looks like. He's wearing gloves, and like even now, it's like the man is the one who gets his hands dirty in the house for to provide, and then the women are the ones who stay at home, cook and stuff like that. Then his most known paintings are the four freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, and freedom from want, and freedom from fear. He made these after President Franklin Roosevelt made a speech in Congress in 1941 describing the four essential human freedoms. He completed these within 6 months in 1942, and they were published in the Post in 1943. They became greatly popular, and even other publications asked them to reprint them. And the federal government also took the original paintings on a national tour to sell war bonds, and they raised a lot of money for the war. The the one that is most known is the Freedom from Want. Is the third most renowned painting, and it was considered one of his finest works. It became a symbol of family togetherness, peace, and plenty. And it became one of the most also famous representation of Thanksgiving in America. As you can see, it's they're all sitting around a big table. Somebody's setting down the turkey, and then the man, the grandpa, whoever that is waiting to cut it. So it was. I don't know why. Honestly, I don't understand why it was like such an important one, such a famous one, because it honestly just shows America as a sweet thing or as a perfect thing, and that's not what it is. Um, but even though he had a great success from these four paintings, he considered a loss, like a really big loss. His studio um, was destroyed by a fire, and a lot of his original paintings were also destroyed. So he ended up moving away with his wife. And this is a quote by him. Maybe as I grew up and found the world wasn't the perfect place I had thought it to be, I unconsciously decided it wasn't an ideal world. It should be, and so painted only the ideal aspects of it. And as I was talking about earlier, he he shows like America as a sweet thing, like a perfect thing, and ideal thing, like he said. Um, yes, and you can see this. I mean, he says that a lot of people were saying that he was too serious, but in my opinion, like I think um he was like he addressed things that a lot of artists wouldn't have done so like throughout the during the time. Um, for example, this one is called the Golden Rule, and it's as you can see, it's like people of multiple ethnicities, race, and nationalities all together, and it says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." And I feel like this is that painting honestly is like something that I think should still be around because even now it's not it's not some like we can't even live like all together without being um being judged based on like race, religion, or ethnicities or skin color. And I think that's a really big thing to like paint in the 1900s because even like I feel like I mean racism was always a thing, but like I feel like back then racism was like just like more of an open thing. Like people are still racist no matter what, but they keep it to themselves. You don't want you won't you don't sometimes you don't know people are racist. But like back then, I feel like that was a really important thing. And in 1977, President Gerald Ford awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The Presidential Medal of Freedom was established by President JFK in 1963, and it still is considered the nation's highest civilian honor. It is awarded by the President of the United States to individuals who have made exceptional contributions to the security or national interests of America, to world peace, or to cultural or other significant public or private endeavors. And this is a quote that Gerald Ford said, about Rockwell. It says, artist, illustrator, and author Norman Rockwell has portrayed the American scene with unrivaled freshness and clarity. Insight, optimism, and good humor all are the hallmarks of his artistic style. His vivid and affectionate portraits of our country and ourselves have become a beloved part of the American tradition. And then his current whereabouts, he is currently dead and buried at Stockbridge Cemetery in Massachusetts. Massachusetts, I can't even say it right. Death, he died on November 8th, 1978, of, I don't know how to say the disease, but at the age of 84. The disease is a progressive disease in the lungs, and it causes shortness of breath and inflammation in the lungs. And that picture of the newspaper, it was released 2 days after his death on November 10th, 1978, talking about his death and how it was considered a loss for America. Then last impressions. In my opinion, I think Norman Rockwell gave like a really bittersweet perspective to the American life because, as the quote that I put in earlier, he drew a lot of like, you know, he drew America as an ideal place, and like he perceived that like perfection when he was drawing America in a lot of his paintings. But then there was other paintings that, like this one right here, um, where he discussed things that were like not so pretty about America, like the realness of America and the situations that were really going on. As you can see, this is addressing during the time that American schools were desegregating, and it was crazy what was going on. Like they literally had to escort like African American like children to their classrooms just so they wouldn't get assaulted. Like like it's crazy, and they were still getting assaulted. I mean, you see in the background, they were on the walls, like the N word, and then in the top left corner, you can see they wrote KKK, and they were throwing tomatoes at her. And I think that even during the time, like I feel like he probably like this painting. I know it was one of his most controversial paintings because people were like, well, he's only doing it for the propaganda. He's only doing it for how like they say now he's only doing it for the clout, quote unquote. Um, he's not really doing it to address these situations. He's only doing it to get the support. But no matter what the reason was, it's still a big deal that he painted this in the 1970s or back. I don't know what year he painted this painting, but in my opinion, I think it's a big deal because I think racism. I mean, racism is still a thing no matter what, but it's not how what it used to be. It's not. It's portrayed a whole different type of way now. And but during the time, this is what it was. So that is the lasting impressions that I have on him. It was more like a bittersweet. He had a very bittersweet perspective to the American life. So that's the end of my presentation. The end.